Hello there, and welcome back to Reese Rambles, my weekly podcast all about the latest comings and goings, movings and shakings, and anything else that's caught my attention in the worlds of vintage and retro, computing and gaming in the past week. How are you all doing? I hope you're all having a wonderful time out there. Hope you're all safe, most importantly, given some of the weather-related stuff that's been going on in the world, particularly in America. In the past couple of weeks, and I will talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And I hope you're all having a nice weekend. But I should first address the situation with last week's Ramble. I know I promised in the previous one 2 weeks ago that I would be back in the usual time and place, and I wasn't. And I tried to get the word out. I did post about it on the. I did a community post on my second channel here. Posted about it on my Discord and also as a pinned comment on the previous Ramble, but a few people did contact me asking if I was okay and stuff, which was very nice of you. I do appreciate people reaching out. But no, I was in London. I was in our country's fine capital, the Big Smoke, having a wonderful time. We left about sort of midday-ish on the Friday, and it was a case of trying to find some time to record last week's Ramble at some point during the week, or maybe even do it in a mad rush on the Friday morning. And I just didn't get around to it. I just ran out of time to do it, and it got to sort of part way through the week and decided that, no, I'm going to have to abandon it for this week. So apologies for that, but I am back. And I said I would talk a little bit about the weather situation. Of course, we've had Milton has just hit Florida. Sounds like it wasn't as bad. I mean, obviously it's still pretty horrific, but it sounds like it wasn't as bad as it could have been, which is, I suppose, at least some positive news. And indeed, I hope you are all safe out there if you're living in that part of the world. And indeed, like I say, there is kind of a retro connection to this as well, because 2 weeks ago when we last met, I talked a little bit about Hurricane Helene, or Helena as I called it at the time, because in my defense I'd only seen it written down and I hadn't actually heard anyone say it. And it turned out that that actually ended up heading quite far north, up America itself, much further north than these things generally do. And it basically, there was a place in North Carolina called Asheville, which ended up bearing the brunt of it and sort of taking the kind of the absolute, like I say, the brunt of the impact. And it turns out that Asheville in North Carolina is where Clint lives. Clint from, of course, LGR. And yeah, pretty horrific news from him as a result of that. And I guess I just kind of wanted to go over that because there has been, I don't want to call it a happy ending because, of course, it's still a pretty terrible situation for anyone to be in. But there has been some positive news that has come out of that today, which I just wanted to share with you. But first, we'll just go over this. So this is some actual footage from the day from Asheville itself. This was kind of the first footage that I saw. I think somebody posted this on my Discord server. And I mean, you've got water that's kind of up to the roof lines of buildings. You've got a car that's kind of floating off down the road. I mean, this is horrific stuff to see. I can only imagine. I don't think I can imagine what it would be like to have to live through something like this. And of course, Clint's house is in the middle of all this somewhere. And initially, of course, everyone was worried about him. We didn't hear anything from him at first, but he did post on Twitter. And he posted on September the 27th just saying that he was safe and that he was with family and that he was going to have to put his channel and stuff on hold for a while just as a result of the damage. And shortly after that, a couple of days after that, he posted some pictures of some trees that had actually gone through the roof of his house. He says here, two trees destroyed my roof, a living dining room, flooded my LGR collection rooms down below, a dozen or more trees down in front yard, no way yet to get equipment in to remove trees, roof hole is too big and unstable to put a tarp over it. And if you watched any of his LGR Birds streams, you'll know that his house is surrounded by trees. It's really lovely. He kind of lives in the woods. Unfortunately, not so good when you get hit by a hurricane. But thankfully, a couple of days after that, he posted a video update, basically just showing the damage kind of a bit closer up, just letting us know that he was safe and everything, which is great to see. He turned that into a fundraiser, and he has raised nearly $13,000 for a charity called Help from the Skies, which is a charity that airlifts support, food and medication and that kind of stuff into these kind of disaster-hit areas. And he basically said, don't worry about me, support this charity because there's people in this town that are far worse off than I am, which is Clint through and through. After that, he has posted some more updates, and he basically couldn't get access to the house because it wasn't safe and all the rest of it. But he has actually managed to get in today and has posted an update and some pictures. And it's actually good news, or about as good as it could have been given the circumstances. He's posted here, update, my entire retro game collection survived. Modern games and systems, not so much, but all the box PC stuff is good. Even the small box stuff from the 2000s that was in the waterlogged collection room. Mould was beginning to set in, but I got it out and cleaned in time. And he's posted some pictures of some storage boxes here, some plastic and some cardboard boxes labelled with stuff like PS1, PS2 and PC. And here you can see his collection room. He's got his big box game collection on the shelves there, which should be a familiar sight to anyone. He's got Duke Nukem 3D there in a plastic box on the and Motocross Madness in the box next to it as well. We can see some hardware here, pictures of monitors and things stacked up, and they look dry and completely unscathed. And I appreciate worrying about retro hardware and software and stuff is a little bit silly when people have lost their houses and people have lost their lives and stuff, but of course, there was a lot of concern about this. He does own some very sort of historically interesting and quite rare things in his collection, and it is essentially his entire livelihood documenting this stuff. So good to see some good news coming out of all of this, I suppose. He does clarify here. Someone asked, what exactly was it that he did lose? And he said Switch, PS5, Xbox, Steam Deck, his Windows 11 gaming PC, as they were basically in the living room that was hit directly by those fallen trees. So, yeah, that's an update on Clint. Just good to see that he and his family are okay and that his collection is okay. Like I say, just some kind of more positive news to come out of all the stuff that's been going on at the moment. But thought I would update you on that, and that is my first story for the week. If you're one of the people who've been following my channel for a while, you will no doubt be aware that I have some other interests outside of all of this stuff. There's the fitness stuff that I've mentioned a few times in the past. There's I have pet ducks. I'm into DIY and stuff. We grow food in our garden. I was a beekeeper for a while. I can ride a unicycle, although I haven't for a very long time. But lots of interesting things. I like to sort of dabble with stuff, and I'm sure that's probably something that a lot of you will find relatable. But one of my hobbies that's kind of been somewhat consistent, at least by my standards, throughout my life, has been music. I mean, when I was about 14, 15 years old, I picked up the bass for the very first time, the bass guitar. I had a friend who played the guitar. He was very, very good, and he wanted to start a band, and I didn't really have all that much interest in playing the guitar. Drums I was kind of interested in for a bit, and I do own a drum kit, and I do, I've been known to dabble a little bit. But it was the bass that really attracted me, and it was kind of a result of listening to stuff like Red Hot Chili Peppers and Flea, of course, amazing bassist, and all of that kind of stuff around that age, 14, 15, that kind of alternative rock music. And I distinctly remember there was kind of a set of like 4 or 5 albums that were kind of doing the rounds in my friend group. I mean, this would have been around sort of 1999, maybe 2000-ish. And maybe a bit earlier than that, actually. But there was stuff like, Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill was quite big. I think that was quite mainstream, wasn't it? But stuff like Nevermind, Nirvana, In Utero as well, kind of the follow-up from that. The Offspring, Smash, and Ixnay on the Hombre, and then I think Americana came out around that time. But of course, the big one was Green Day, and my friend group, and definitely myself, were very much into Dookie, which was their 1994 album. I promise, again, there is a retro connection to this. It was just absolutely huge, and it's one of those albums that I can listen to from start to finish and not skip a single track. I love everything on that album. I think it is an absolutely fantastic album, and very much a product of its time, and still very sort of listenable today as well. And it turns out that this week is actually the 30th anniversary of Dookie. It came out this week in 1994. Of course, it passed me by when it was new. I was 10 years old, and my parents were. I mean, my parents had really good taste in music. I mean, they were into stuff like David Bowie and Queen and Genesis and Meatloaf and Led Zeppelin, that kind of stuff. The Who. But yeah, obviously, as kind of my generation, I had to discover my own sort of generation of music. But what I'm getting to here is that it is the 30th anniversary of Dookie, and they've done something very, very cool to mark this anniversary of one of my favourite albums. And it has a very strong retro gaming and retro tech vibe and connection to it. And I think this is so cool. It also has a very cool website. So let's stop waffling about this and take a look at this amazing website. So this is dookiedemastered.com, and just when you first land here on the site, obviously there's a picture of a floppy disk. There's is that Teddy Ruxpin, the talking teddy bear? I don't think he was all that big in the UK, but as you scroll down, there's stuff like there's a digital answering machine. There's a big mouth Billy Bass. And it says here 15 tracks demastered in 15 formats. There's a picture of a wax cylinder. There's a music box, a mini disc, and a toothbrush, an electric toothbrush. And the description here: the album that exploded punk rock 30 years ago re-exploded onto obscure, obsolete, and inconvenient formats. And as you scroll down through this, these things that load in, like the videos and the images and stuff, they start off with like this really heavy sort of fake JPEG compression and then kind of load as you scroll down, which is very, very nostalgic. But as you can see here from this video, and of course this will be linked, as will everything else that I talk about in this week's Ramble, what they've done is they've taken the 15 tracks from the album and they've demastered them. They say they've basically re-recorded them on all sorts of different retro vintage formats, some of the aforementioned ones. So they've got, in fact, let's open this up because there is actually a video demonstration for each one. So they've got Burnout, the first track from the album, on a player piano, obviously with the kind of paper tape with the punctured holes in it, which kind of plays the piano automatically. Kind of a computing connection there. Very much a computing connection here. So this is a Windows XP computer they've got here, and the second track on the album, Having a Blast, they've created a very, very low, I think it's, 16 kbps MP3 version to get it to fit on a floppy disk. So they've done the second track on floppy disk. By the way, there is a chance that you can actually buy all of these things, which is quite interesting. We've got Teddy Ruxpin here demonstrating track 3, Chump, and they've actually programmed all of the mouth and eye movements to fit with the actual with the song as well. Of course, the next track is Longview. As a bass player, one of those songs that has kind of always stood out to me and stuck with me. Fantastic song anyway in its own right. And they've done that on a doorbell. And if you know the actual kind of the theme of the song and the lyrics from the song, that's very, very appropriate. They've actually been clever with quite a lot of these in the way that they've done them. We've got Welcome to Paradise on the Game Boy, and there's actually a bit of a playable game that goes along with this as well. We've got Pulling Teeth on an electric toothbrush. We have... Oh, I've just closed it. That wasn't very clever of me, was it? We've got Basket Case, of course, probably biggest, most iconic song from that album, big hit at the time, as sung by Big Mouth Billy Bass. We've got She, played on a hit clip, if you remember those. I think Tecmo did a video on those. They were like little tiny cartridges that you put in these silly little players, and they had like 30-second clips of songs. But they've done one that's evidently big enough to contain the entire song. We've got Sassafras Roots on an 8-track, demoed here on a very cool-looking little portable 8-track player. We have When I Come Around on an Edison wax cylinder, which is a very cool thing to see. This is really cool to... I mean, I can't really play these because of copyright and whatnot, but if you go to the website, you can hear samples of all of these. We've got Coming Clean on an X-Ray... this is an X-Ray record. So this was a way that records were kind of smuggled into the USSR back in the day. Of course, big restrictions on Western music and stuff, but there were these kind of clandestine record pressing plants that would actually etch records, vinyl records, onto X-rays. and they've released Coming Clean as an X-ray record. We've got Amenius Sleepus, which is done as a digital answering machine message. And yes, it does start with the typical, please leave your message after the tone prompt, and it also says you have to be careful not to delete it by accident, because it is just a bog standard telephone answering machine, and if you press the delete button, you'll end up deleting it forever. We've got In the End, which is on mini disc. We've got FOD on a Fisher-Price record, if you remember those big chunky plastic records with the little pins, and as they went round, they kind of triggered a thing to play. And finally, we've got probably my favourite track, the secret track from the album, All By Myself, and they've done this as a music box. And you can actually, although the drawings have actually closed on these, but as part of the anniversary, you could actually kind of bid to win these. So you would pay, for example, $49 for the first one here, and they kind of range in price depending on what they are. So we've got $99 for Teddy Ruxpin. We've got $79 for Basket Case. We've got $19 for some of the cheaper ones, the music box and the X-ray, the mini disc and stuff. And yeah, you basically entered into a very limited draw. There's only one of each of these. These have all been sort of hand created, and there is a chance that you could be chosen to win. And yeah, your card gets charged and it gets shipped to you. But like I say, that unfortunately has closed, but it doesn't make the project any less interesting or any less cool. You can still go and check out the website and see all of these things in action. And you never know, if I get lucky, you might see one of these things on my channel at some point in the near future, because I did actually enter the drawing for all of them. Of course, I have preferences as to which ones I would prefer, but to be honest, like I say, I love every single track on that album, and I would be honoured to own any of these things. I think it's such a unique and interesting art project, and it's such a cool way to kind of honour the 30th anniversary of this album. And they're all retro and vintage technology as well, which is all very much up my street. So, of course, I was going to be covering this week. I think it is an absolutely brilliant project, and it really did make me smile. Big news in the world of MiSTer this week. Of course, that fantastic FPGA-based hardware emulation, we will call it, method of reproducing all those old computers and games consoles and things to enjoy all of your favourite old games. I'm sure you're all familiar with it now, but I do appreciate that I have a few casual viewers and listeners who are perhaps not quite so terminally online as some of us are. But yeah, MiSTer is a great way to play all of those old console games and run those old computer operating systems, bits of software in the most accurate way possible outside of the real hardware, in my very humble opinion. And there has been very big news in the world of the Super Nintendo core, the SNES core, this week. And this has been quite the technical undertaking. It's been a very long-awaited feature. It is available in some of the kind of more basic cores. I think it's fair to say stuff like the Game Boy and the NES and stuff like the. I was going to say Atari 2600 then. I'm not actually sure if the Atari 2600 core has save states, but maybe it doesn't. But anyway, yes, save states. So basically, the ability to save your game at any point. Now, these are quite controversial in the world of retro gaming. Of course, the developers who made these games originally had their own ideas in mind for how saving is supposed to work. Some games used like a checkpoint system. Of course, we had some cartridges that had actual built-in batteries, so you could actually save those games. Some games that used a password type system, so you would complete a level and you would be given a password, and then if you fire up the game a few days later, you can enter the password and kind of pick up where you left off. But yeah, save states I don't think were ever really envisioned. It's a way of kind of dumping the entire state of the console or the computer in question, and saving it to a file, everything from the RAM, from the memory and stuff, and then you can literally pick up from exactly where you left off, and it's like freezing time. But it's a complex thing to implement, and there are still a fair few cores on MiSTer that don't support it. But yeah, Super Nintendo this week got an experimental save state support, and this is from Paul B. NL, who of course is the developer of that core. And he has announced it over on the MiSTer FPGA forum. So, hi, I've been busy working on save states for the SNES core. And I'm repeating myself a little bit here, but it is done in a way that is more like how it would be done on real hardware, like with an SD2 SNES, which is a flash card that uses SD cards for the SNES. It overrides the NMI interrupt and runs some code on the SNES to save the state. So really cool that this is done in a kind of a very kind of low-level, hardware-accurate way as well. Here's your chance to help test the feature. You'll need the attached SNES core and then load the savestates.bin file with load ssbin before loading a game. This only needs to be done once. Also, currently the unstable main is needed, otherwise loading the bin file won't work. It can be found at the bottom of this link. So this is very much an experimental thing. If you're kind of using stuff like the update all script on your MiSTer to get those cores, you're not going to get this automatically. You very much need to manually download and install it. It has had some coverage on YouTube, including from Pixel Cherry Ninja, who I see has also commented in this thread with a link to the video. So I will link to that because there are some kind of instructions in things on how to get that working. But the initial feedback from this does seem quite good, actually. You know, there are people reporting on the internet that it is working. You know, of course, like I say, it's still very early days yet, but if you want to have a play with that and you want to help to test that out for Paul, I will link to that in the usual places. Of course, there is a comments section. There is a description, I should say. If you're watching this on YouTube, there is a comment section if you want to comment. And of course, listening on various podcast platforms, I use Spotify. I do add all of the links and things to the show notes. I don't know if they come through to most apps. I think at least Spotify has them. But any of the stuff that I talk about in these weekly rambles, you can check out the links to. But I will. I'm going to see if I can have a play with this over the weekend. The SNES is a system that I don't really. You know, every time I play with it, I'm quite surprised at just how good. That's a very nerdy thing to say, isn't it? But you know what I mean? It's not something that I kind of had. It wasn't a part of my childhood. And when I play it, and you know, it's one of these that's sort of held in very high regard and people kind of rave about how good these games are. And when you play them, it's like, actually, yeah, you know what? These people have probably got a point. So any excuse to play with it is a good thing in my book. And I'm going to see if I can have a play with this over the weekend. And so with those stories in the bag, it's now time for our regular Video of the Week feature. Told you I'd been practicing. In fact, that's all I've been doing for the past 2 weeks. Practice makes perfect. Yes, this is, of course, the video on YouTube that has caught my attention in the past week. Not necessarily retro and vintage tech and gaming related, but often it is, and often at least technology adjacent. This one is actually to do with some modern technology, although some quite interesting soldering and problem-solving electronics fixing skills on display here. I think this was actually posted to my Discord server, although I've just had a bit of a dig and I can't find it at all. So apologies to the person who posted this. I'm not going to be able to give you any credit. But I mean, I have seen it pop up in quite a few places. Make yourself known down in the comments and yeah, everyone can say thank you to you. But yeah, anyway, I'm getting distracted. This is a video titled 50% of all 4090 will end up in trash. And here is why. And the name of the channel is Northwest Repair. And this is a 5-month-old video, but it's had over 500,000 views now, and quite deservedly so. So this is, of course, a GeForce GTX 4090, which is a modern-day graphics card, I'm informed by the kids. I don't have kids, just buy kids in general. And this one is broken, and the troubleshooting process on display here is absolutely insane. So, of course, this is all, BGA soldering. It's all, the guy actually desolders the GPU itself and all of the RAM chips from this card. Spoiler alert. But it's absolutely fascinating to watch. And, of course, he talks through his troubleshooting process and testing process. Runs into a bit of a setback and actually ends up with a second donor card and builds a working card out of the two. And of course, these modern day graphics cards are so insanely complicated. You know, they're such incredible pieces of engineering. And I struggle with through-hole stuff. I don't really touch surface mount stuff, and I'll be the first to admit that. I'm not the greatest at soldering. So to see someone who is just so good and so proficient at what they do, and evidently he enjoys it as well. I mean, he does. These are paid jobs that he does, these repairs on his channel, and he evidently has a whale of a time repairing this stuff and explaining it to people and sharing those skills with people as well. And I just think it's a great thing to watch. It's just I'm in awe of the skills, like I say, on display here. I thought it was a really, really interesting video, if only for the kind of the commentary on the kind of troubleshooting, as well as seeing some of the techniques and things that are being used here. And yeah, I won't spoil the ending of the video, but it's worth watching. I'll tell you that. Yeah. I mean, that's why I featured it as my video of the week. So that's the video of the week. Of course, that will be linked in the usual places, as I have explained with all of the other stuff featured this week, as always. Go check it out. And so, sadly, our time together today is beginning to draw to a close, as it unfortunately always has to do. But I think just before we say goodbye for this week, let's take a look at some behind-the-scenes stuff to do with my YouTube channel, of course, Control-Alt-Reese. And you'll no doubt be aware that I have been running a bit of an experiment over there. So throughout the month of September, I decided I was going to really push myself and go for weekly releases. And this is all tied into taking on sponsorship and stuff and being able to spend a bit more time on the channel. And I'm very, very pleased to report that I managed that, and I was really, really happy with those videos and how they came together. And it turns out that I've actually carried on in October as well. So I have released a video today, and I did release one last week as well. So 6 Friday mornings in a row, I've had a video go public to my Control-Alt-Reese subscribers. And people are loving them at the moment, and it's having a very positive impact on the growth of the channel as well, which is really, really nice to see. Nice to see those videos resonating with people and people enjoying them, and a load of new people noticing the channel as a result of those videos getting pushed by YouTube and subscribing, which is really cool. So if you're new, hello, by the way, welcome. This is a little bit different to probably what you've seen on my other channel. But yeah, let's dive into those analytics anyway. So yes, I have this on the 90-day view at the moment, which isn't the default view. But I just kind of wanted to show, I don't have today's video on here. YouTube's analytics doesn't show, there's a 24-hour lag. So you can see what the real-time views have been since that went out. I mean, 350 to sort of 400 views per hour, very consistently since 11 o'clock this morning, which is great. That's actually really good by the sort of standards of my channel. So that's great to see. And yeah, you can see the previous 5 releases there weekly. But if I just change this back to the default view, which is 28 days, we have a message here. Keep it up. Your channel got 170% more views than usual in the last 28 days. So that's 99.5 thousand views, which is 54,000 more than usual. 14,800 watch time. Hours, I should say, watch time, which is 9,000 more than usual. And I've gained an extra 1,400 subscribers, which is 923 more than usual. Now, I just want to sort of put a really big disclaimer on this, because obviously chasing numbers is not what I'm about. I make these videos because I love tinkering with this stuff. I love the process of making videos. I make these videos for my own enjoyment and my own entertainment, and the fact that other people also enjoy them has always been something that has made me really happy. I've always been incredibly grateful for that. And I don't see subscribers as anonymous numbers. Of course, they're all part of my community, and it's just very gratifying to know that when I've been putting the work in that I've been putting in, that people have been enjoying this so much, and that it has been so successful. And the way to measure that, the metric, is in looking at the actual numbers. And the better the channel does, the more videos I can make, and the more motivated I am to take on new projects and things. I mean, as you've probably spotted throughout this ramble, there is something quite interesting next to me on the desk. I was hoping to get something recorded with this today, but it turns out I've run out of time because I've made such a horrific mess over the course of making those previous 6 videos that I've actually been tidying the studio today, just preparing for this one. But this is really interesting, and this is a very, very rare piece of hardware which you probably haven't seen before. And I know it's easy for me to say that, but I think you probably haven't seen this. Unless you follow me on my social media and stuff, and then you have seen a picture of it. But you know what I mean. But anyway, yeah, so good to see that the channel is doing so well at the moment, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving what I'm doing at the moment, and I am just incredibly grateful to everyone who is kind of supporting me, watching my stuff, sharing my videos, and just being nice and saying nice things about what I'm doing. Ultimately, that's kind of what it's all about, and that's the reason why I continue to do this. So, yeah, thank you ever so much for joining me once more for this week's Ramble. Apologies again for last week, and yeah, I'll try to be a bit more on it. I promise. Actually, no, I shouldn't promise anything, should I? Because promises inevitably get broken, and then people get sad. But yeah, I should probably be back next week, maybe, almost definitely. Yeah, depends whether I survive this 10k race that I'm running on Sunday. I haven't run that far in quite a long time, although I used to do quite a bit of sort of competitive running and stuff. So yeah, I'll see you on the other side, and you never know, might make it to a 7-week streak. I'm certainly not going to push it. I'm certainly not going to let the quality of the video suffer as a result of trying to push it, but having so much fun playing with this stuff at the moment, putting out those videos, and that's that. That's all I got for this week's Ramble. It's been 2 weeks, and I've forgotten how I usually end these, so bye.